Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post-ceremony. My name is Lexa Peterson, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Sergeant Renee Boz. Today marks the 124th anniversary of the end of the South African Boer War. The South African Boer War began in October 1899 after two Boer republics, the Orange Free State and Transvaal, fearing British colonial ambitions, invaded the British-held colonies of Natal and Cape Colony. The British suffered a series of successive heavy defeats, which came to be known as Black Week. The Australian colonies were quick to offer troops to Britain, and the first Australian contingents began arriving in South Africa in December 1899, too late to take part in the actions of Black Week. In February 1900, Queensland and New South Wales troops took part in the relief of Kimberley. The Boer armies became fragmented during 1900 after suffering a series of defeats. The Boers continued to operate in groups of highly mobile commandos, which fought a guerrilla war against the British and their allies. The mobile war suited the Australians, who predominantly fought in mounted units, though their horses suffered terribly in the harsh conditions of the veld. Australians took part in many iconic battles during the South African Boer War, such as Diamond Head, Eland's River, and Vilman's Rust. After the Federation of Australia on the 1st of January 1901, the new nation raised 8 battalions of mounted infantrymen for service in South Africa. However, only the first 2 battalions arrived in time to see service. The war came to an end on the 31st of May 1902, when the Boer republics signed the Treaty of Vereeniging in Pretoria. Over 16,000 Australians served in South Africa in Australian contingents. Others served in British or South African units, and a small number fought for the Boers. Conditions in South Africa were particularly trying. Of Australia's 588 fatal casualties, 282 were killed in action or died of wounds, 286 died from disease, and another 38 died due to accidents or from other unknown causes. Today, we remember all those who died as a result of their service during the South African Boer War and whose names are recorded here on the Roll of Honour. 2026 marks 125 years of dedicated service by the Australian Army and its predecessors. Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Henry Allwright Betts. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that love and support them. The live stream of this ceremony is made possible by the Returned and Services League of Australia and the RSL and Services Clubs Association. We welcome members who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the pool of reflection by visitors to the memorial. Now, if you're able, please stand and join in singing the national anthem.
All under bonds in name.
The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed at the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit, in the heart of the land they loved, and here we guard the record that they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 103,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and in operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, flowers of the forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the pool of reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Lance Corporal Henry Allwright Betts. Henry Betts was born on the 23rd of January 1878 in Hobart, Tasmania. He was the only child of John Richard Betts, an officer in the Tasmanian Rifle Regiment, and his wife, Fanny Elizabeth Wilkinson. The family lived in Brighton on the outskirts of Hobart. He attended the local school before joining the Brighton Rifle Corps with the rank of private. By 1897, Henry had joined the Macquarie Street State School in South Hobart as an assistant teacher. He also volunteered at the local St Mark's Anglican Church as a Sunday school teacher and lay reader. In late 1899, Henry volunteered for service with the newly formed 1st Contingent of the Tasmanian Infantry. Accepted with the rank of private, he began preparing to depart for the unfolding war in South Africa. Although Britain had recognised the Orange Free State and the Transvaal as independent Boer republics in the 1850s, tensions remained high. The two sides had fought a war between 1880 and 1881, in which the British had been defeated and the independence of the Transvaal was secured. By 1899, tensions had once again risen. With the discovery of gold and diamonds in the Boer republics in the 1880s, British subjects had flooded the territories. This added to British imperial ambition and the Boer desire to stay independent, caused more friction in 1899. These tensions provoked the Boers to attack the British. As part of the British Empire, the Australian colonies offered troops to the war in South Africa. The 1st Tasmanian contingent left Launceston on the 27th of October, 1899, bound for Cape Town in the transport Medic. In South Africa, the contingent joined the Australian regiment on garrison duty along the railway. After quite a few months, the contingent was converted into a mounted unit in February 1900. It fought alongside the Victorian Mounted Rifles and the South Australian Mounted Rifles as part of the 4th Mounted Infantry Corps of Bloemfontein. In May, during an action against the Boers, Henry was commended for his devotion to duty and conduct during the fighting. A young corporal's horse had been shot, leaving men stranded on foot, far from safety. He recalled in his diary that, "I ran for about 200 yards when Betts came galloping along behind me and stopped. I got my foot in his stirrup and lay across his saddle. He then galloped out of the firing line without him. I must have been taken prisoner." Soon after this moment of heroism, Henry was promoted to the rank of Lance Corporal. And by late June, the Tasmanian Mounted Infantry were based in Transvaal around Edendale. On the 20th of June, 3 men from the contingent were sent out on a patrol to communicate with the Victorians at the front. Henry led the patrol and was joined by 2 privates. As Lieutenant Francis Heritage later recalled, "They had been gone half an hour when I heard the familiar pot of the Mauser several times and guessed that the patrol had been fired on. Shortly afterwards, 3 horses came galloping madly back and one of them was riderless." While Privates Smith and Williams had returned safely, Lance Corporal Henry Betts was missing. The contingent's medical officer was sent out carrying a Red Cross flag. He returned shortly afterwards, delivering the news that Henry Betts had been shot through the heart and killed. He was 22 years old. Henry's death had a significant impact on those who had known him, both at home in Tasmania and in the field in South Africa. Lieutenant Heritage reflected that Betts' death was a great shock to me, as I had been chatting with him while eating lunch half an hour previously. He was in excellent spirits, telling me of his prospects in Tasmania and how he intended to go on with teaching and make his mark. He had only been promoted a fortnight before and was a most promising soldier. Back in Hobart, a bronze memorial tablet was erected in St Mark's Church in his memory reading, "A Soldier of Christ and His Queen." Henry's body was originally buried at Hatherley, but in June 1961 he was exhumed and reinterred in the Garden of Remembrance at Diamond Hill Military Cemetery in South Africa. His name is also listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 600 Australians who died while serving in the South African Boer War. His photograph is displayed today beside the Pool of Reflection. This is but one of the many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Lance Corporal Henry Allwright Betts, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the reading of the Ode and sounding of the last post. They shall grow not old as we that are left grow old.
Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them.
We will remember them.
Lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many a man lying out there at Pozières or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes the last post ceremony. On behalf of the Director, staff and volunteers, thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial today. We wish you all a very pleasant evening.